I grew up playing the basketball with the boys, so like it's always been physical and feisty, and like that's what it is. And you got to find a way to hold your.
2 minutes ago, the unthinkable happened. Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation who single-handedly transformed women's basketball, has reportedly resigned from the WNBA. Yes, you heard that right. The player who packed arenas, shattered viewership records, and brought an entire generation of new fans to the sport has walked away. And the aftermath? Absolute chaos. Sophie Cunningham's voice is cracking on camera. Lexie Hull can't hold back tears. Teammates are devastated. Fans are in shock. And the entire basketball world is scrambling for answers to a mystery that nobody saw coming. This isn't just any player we're talking about. This is Caitlin Clark, the woman who made women's basketball appointment television, the rookie who had seasoned veterans taking notes, the phenomenon who turned casual sports fans into die-hard WNBA supporters overnight. And now, in what feels like a nightmare scenario, she's gone. But here's where the story gets truly wild. Nobody knows why. The WNBA isn't talking. Her team isn't explaining. And the silence is deafening. Just days ago, Clark was absolutely dominating. She was leading her team in points and assists, making SportsCenter highlights look routine, and generating buzz that the league had never seen before. There were no warning signs, no injuries, no missed practices. She wasn't struggling with her game or causing locker room drama. In fact, she was doing everything right, both on and off the court. She was the golden child, the face of the future, the player who was supposed to carry women's basketball into a new era of popularity and respect. So what could possibly force someone like that to just disappear? The theories started flying within minutes of the news breaking. Some whispered about load management, trying to rationalize this as some kind of strategic rest period. Others suggested minor disciplinary issues. Maybe she'd broken some team rule we didn't know about. But none of it made sense. Clark wasn't the type to break rules or cause trouble. She was professional, dedicated, and hungry for success. This felt different. This felt like something much deeper was happening behind closed doors. And that's when the Real story started to emerge. Sources close to the league began revealing cracks in what seemed like a perfect relationship. Clark's meteoric rise wasn't just about her incredible basketball skills. It was about her voice. She wasn't content to just play the game and stay quiet. Her post-game interviews became must-watch television because she spoke with a refreshing honesty that fans had never heard before. She didn't give the typical athlete answers, the safe corporate speak that usually dominates sports media. She was real, she was authentic, and she connected with people in a way that made her dangerous to those who preferred players who simply played and stayed silent. The social media clips of her unfiltered comments started going viral, reaching audiences far beyond traditional basketball fans. She was breaking the unspoken rule that had governed women's sports for decades. The rule that said you blend in, you don't rock the boat, you're grateful just to be there. But Clark wasn't interested in blending in. She stood out, and apparently not everyone in positions of power was comfortable with that level of authenticity and influence. Then came the bombshell revelation that changed everything. In what was supposed to be a private meeting with league officials, Clark allegedly challenged the WNBA's marketing strategies head-on. She didn't mince words or try to be diplomatic. She called their approach tone-deaf and completely disconnected from the fans she felt she represented. She spoke with the same directness that made her interviews so compelling. But this time, she was talking to people who weren't used to being questioned, let alone criticized by a rookie. The meeting reportedly went badly, really badly. Clark didn't back down, didn't apologize for her opinions, and didn't seem interested in playing politics. She believed in her vision for how the league could better connect with its audience, and she wasn't going to pretend otherwise just to keep people comfortable. According to those who were there, the tension in that room was thick enough to cut with a knife. What happened next feels like something out of a horror movie for any professional athlete. Within 48 hours of that meeting, Clark's playing time began to mysteriously shrink. The player who had been getting starter minutes, who had been featured in promotional materials, who had been the centerpiece of the team's marketing, suddenly found herself with reduced court time. By the 72-hour mark, she was completely benched. Not injured, not disciplined for any public infraction, just gone. But the silencing didn't stop there. It was as if someone had flipped a switch and erased her from existence. No more press conferences with her name on them. No more interview requests being approved. No more direct statements or public appearances. The brightest star in the league had been turned into a ghost, and nobody was explaining why. It was systematic, it was thorough, and it was absolutely chilling to watch unfold. The fans, however, weren't having any of it. They refused to let their favorite player simply fade away without a fight. Within hours of realizing what was happening, hashtags like #WhereIsCaitlin began trending across every social media platform. Comment sections that used to celebrate highlights were now filled with angry demands for answers. The outrage wasn't contained to WNBA fans either. NBA superstars started weighing in, calling the league's handling of the situation shady, calculated, and downright disrespectful to the integrity of the game. Every question that went unanswered only fueled more suspicion. Every day of silence from the league made the situation look worse. What had started as confusion was rapidly transforming into something much more dangerous for the WNBA, active defiance. The fans weren't just upset, they were organizing, and they were loud about it. That's when Sophie Cunningham stepped into the chaos and changed everything. While reporters were still scrambling for scraps of information and the league's PR team was hiding behind corporate speak, Sophie decided she'd had enough of the silence. In what should have been a routine post-game interview, she delivered a line that absolutely detonated across the sports world. "You don't sideline your biggest star unless you're scared of her power." The moment those words left her mouth, you could feel the entire landscape shift. Reporters in the room were stunned. Social media exploded. Within hours, that clip was everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, podcasts. Fans were replaying it like it was their new anthem, because finally someone with a platform was saying what they were all thinking. But Sophie wasn't finished. She doubled down in ways that showed incredible courage and conviction. On her podcast, she went even further, accusing the league of retaliation and claiming that Clark's benching had absolutely nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with politics. She charged that the WNBA was more interested in maintaining control than celebrating progress, more obsessed with protecting their authority than supporting the very talent that was keeping the league relevant and exciting. Sophie said out loud what many players had been whispering in private, that Clark's punishment was designed as a warning to anyone else who might consider speaking too boldly or shining too brightly. It was a message that said, "This is what happens when you don't stay in your lane." The courage Sophie showed was contagious. Fans rallied around her just as hard as they had around Clark. New hashtags started trending. Hashtag #StandWithSophie and hashtag #FreeClark began appearing side by side, carried by thousands of voices that refused to be ignored. What had started as one person's brave statement was becoming a full-fledged movement. Then Lexie Hull entered the fight, and she brought a different kind of power. Instead of long speeches or podcast episodes, she walked into a press room and delivered one sentence that cut deeper than anything anyone had said yet. "If Caitlin Clark can be treated like this, what do you think they'll do to the rest of us?" The room went completely silent. No one was prepared for that level of directness, that raw honesty about what this situation really meant for every player in the league. It wasn't just about Clark anymore. It was about precedent, about power, about whether players had any real voice in their own careers. Lexie followed up with social media moves that were equally powerful. She posted a striking black and white photo of herself with Clark, with just one word as the caption, loyalty. That single word triggered a storm of speculation and support. Later, she posted tweets that were cryptic and emotional, including one that was quickly deleted, but not before fans screenshot it. If you want to build a legacy, stop silencing the ones who create it. Behind the scenes, the situation was getting even more intense. Lexie had reportedly become one of the loudest voices in team meetings, directly confronting coaching staff and demanding explanations for why the player who consistently sold out arenas was suddenly glued to the bench. Her teammates were backing her up, creating divisions in locker rooms across the league. Meanwhile, the fans had transformed from angry observers into active investigators. They started analyzing game footage with forensic precision, documenting missed foul calls and suspicious minute reductions despite Clark's stellar performance. They created side-by-side comparisons showing how Clark's coverage on the WNBA's own social media accounts had quietly disappeared. Their findings spread like wildfire through TikTok videos and Reddit threads that racked up millions of views. After 2 days of complete silence, the WNBA finally released a statement that somehow made everything worse. It was corporate, sterile, and completely detached from reality. They didn't mention Clark by name, didn't acknowledge the growing controversy, and reduced the entire situation to what they called a strategic rotational decision. They asked fans to simply trust the process, as if millions of people hadn't watched this unfold in real time. The backlash was immediate and devastating. Sophie responded with a single eye roll emoji that got tens of thousands of likes within minutes. Lexie reposted the statement with the caption, "So, we're pretending this is normal now." Even veteran players who had stayed quiet started speaking up, with one former star tweeting, "Rotational decisions don't erase your MVP candidate without a reason. Something else is going on, and it stinks." The financial impact became impossible to ignore. Clark jersey sales, which had been breaking records just weeks earlier, plummeted overnight. Ticket refunds spiked in cities where fans had bought seats specifically to watch her play. The momentum she had single-handedly built, the sold-out arenas, the expanding fan base, the fresh energy in women's basketball, was unraveling at lightning speed. Corporate sponsors started asking questions behind closed doors. At least 2 major brand partners reportedly reached out to league officials asking for clarification before they continued their promotional partnerships. In corporate speak, that was less of a request and more of a warning. Fix this mess or risk losing our support. The breaking point came when Sophie and Lexie sat down together for a joint interview that was broadcast live across major sports networks. Their faces were stern, their words sharper than ever before. Sophie looked directly into the camera and said, "If this is how you treat the player who built your league, no one's safe." Then Lexie delivered the final blow. "We've been told to stay quiet for too long." Not anymore. Within minutes, clips of that interview went viral. Commentators called it the most honest moment in WNBA history. NBA players shared the footage with fire emojis. Even rival WNBA stars who had been silent started liking and sharing the video. The movement had reached critical mass, with hashtags trending worldwide. Hashtag players over politics, hashtag let them speak, hashtag save women's basketball. Now, as we're learning about Clark's shocking resignation, everything makes sense in the most heartbreaking way possible. The walls of secrecy have cracked wide open. Former players are sharing their own stories of being silenced. An entire league structure is under scrutiny like never before. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull refuse to step back, even as they're processing the devastating news that their fight might have come too late. The question isn't just whether the WNBA can survive this crisis. It's whether they can survive it with any credibility intact. Because right now, they're not just fighting a controversy. They're fighting for the future of women's basketball itself.